The Washington Post did a service by compiling this data because I think we can all agree that there was a lack of accurate information there with respect to having a better understanding of officer-involved shootings in this country. But you also said, and it's very true, the way it's being presented to the public is it's almost, in a very perfunctory way, it's almost being used as a pretext to make an argument that law enforcement's doing something wrong. And if you just scratch the surface and look just a little deeper at the data, you realize that a lot of what we're hearing are complete mischaracterizations. You hear people like Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders who go on and on about systemic racism in law enforcement and the criminal justice system, and you would come away with the belief that, you know, police officers are basically out murdering unarmed, particularly young African-American males, and the data just doesn't back that up. I'll give you an example. If you look at it, 85% of the individuals who were shot and killed last year by law enforcement were possessing a deadly weapon. Now, the Washington Post kind of created a distinction between a, quote, deadly weapon and a vehicle, which is kind of odd to me because a vehicle can and often is used as a deadly weapon against police officers. Less than 10% of the people shot and killed were, quote, unarmed. And I think it's also important that we dispel this myth of the unarmed individual as somehow incapable of compromising a potentially deadly threat to a police officer. And I'll give you another statistic. Over the past 10 to 15 years, of the officers feloniously killed on the line of duty, between 5 and 8% of those officers are killed with their own weapon. So ostensibly, those are situations where officers are encountering individuals who are, quote, unarmed. But at some point, those individuals take a weapon away from a police officer and use that weapon on the officer. So a lot of it misleading, but it really only requires a very just scratching the surface a little bit to see how a lot of what we're told is simply not true.
And I mean, I look at a lot of these are traffic stops as well, where I'm looking at one, for instance, a man named Freddie Blue, 20-year-old man, armed with a gun. He was shot on July 10th last year in Georgia. During a traffic stop, they were trying to get 4 people out of a vehicle, and one of them decided it would be a smart idea to pull out a gun and try to threaten a cop with it. And there are a lot of simple, like routine. I mean, of course, a lot of them too are police showing up to the scene of, a crime underway. But then simple things like this, you have, no wonder you have police, you have a certain protocol with traffic stops, and, everybody's told keep your hands on the steering wheel where they can be seen because you have stuff like this that happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, the traffic stop's particularly dangerous and unpredictable because you have no idea what the person has in the car usually. And you're walking up to the situation kind of certainly from a position of disadvantage because they potentially have the drop on you. So, officers are trained to take every precaution when dealing with individuals. And if they're presented with a threat, they have to react in a way that protects their lives and the lives of other people. And like you said, if you're going to come away with this genius idea of pulling a gun on a police officer, don't be surprised if you end up getting shot. I mean, that's sort of the reality of violence on the streets today.